Well, hi there, everyone. Welcome back. I've got another meal in a jar recipe for you today. We always called this chili cornbread pie or chili cornbread bake, but my husband said, no, don't put the word pie in the title. So I'm just going to go with the title chili cornbread casserole. It's the one where the cornbread, you make it kind of as a topping or like a crust that you place on top of the chili and then you bake it. As the cornbread bakes, it gets infused with chili flavor, and the chili kind of steams the bottom of the cornbread, and it's just super yummy. I've based this recipe on two of my recipes from my cookbook. I've got one for chuck wagon chili and one for a copycat Jiffy corn muffin mix. So today's recipe is based on those, but I've got a few changes that we'll talk about. One of them is that I'm using all ground beef in today's recipe, so no steak bites in this chili. And I've basically cut my chili recipe in half here in order to get the right proportion of chili to cornbread, but that's just how my family likes it. We prefer almost a 2-to-1 ratio of cornbread to chili. So if you like more chili, then I suggest you just make my full chuck wagon chili recipe, then top it with the cornbread batter and bake it. And you'll be able to see at the end what I'm talking about. This recipe yielded about 3 servings, and it's basically a just add water recipe. So it's pretty simple, and it is oh so tasty. Let me show you how I put this together. I'm going to start with just the chili recipe, and then we'll do the cornbread jar in just a minute. So for the chili, I'm using a 24-ounce jar, and like I said, this gave us about 3 servings. I'm using the ground beef, and I have pulsed that in the blender to make the pieces smaller. It's a texture thing for me, that's just how I prefer it. And then I'm going to add some green chilies and some celery. I was kind of making a green layer right there. And then I'm using instant red beans. Thrive Life used to have those. Now they don't even carry them anymore. I would just use our instant black beans if I were you, if you don't have those. And then I'm using some refried beans. Those are instant pinto beans, instant refried beans. And I've got a couple kinds of onions and then some red bell peppers because they're on sale this month. You can definitely use green bell peppers if you prefer, but the red ones are on sale, as well as our ground beef. It's also on sale. Now, if you've seen my chuck wagon chili recipe video, you'll have a good explanation of why I use all of these seasonings. It's basically for depth of flavor because we've got some different kinds of things in here, including a little bit of cocoa powder. I also have white vinegar powder in here, just some regular chili seasonings. All of these probably can be substituted with a package of chili seasonings. But this is how I like it, so this is the recipe I'm using. And then, of course, we need some tomatoes for the chili. But yeah, that is the jar. I love all the layers. I love all the colors. And I think the flavor of this chili is absolutely amazing. All right, for this cornbread, I am going to use just regular all-purpose flour. The recipe that I already have up on my channel, which I will link to that below, it's the copycat Jiffy corn muffin mix. For that recipe, I used Thrive Life's gluten-free flour. So if you need gluten-free, I would refer to that. It's basically the same recipe I'm going to show you here, but instead of using all-purpose flour, I use the Thrive Life gluten-free flour. You do add a little bit more water with the gluten-free. But anyway, let me show you how I put this jar together. I'm going to start with the flour at the bottom of the jar, and like I said, if you need to use gluten-free flour, just use that same amount. And then in goes some cornmeal, as well as some of the Thrive Life sweet corn. Now, I suggest you bruise that or blitz it in the blender because those corn kernels need to be smaller than they come in the can in order to refresh in time. There's just not enough liquid to get those good and refreshed, and they will just burn in the oven. So go ahead and blitz it in the blender and get those smaller, and then you'll have a wonderful corn muffin. And then some other ingredients here that are needed to make that sweet corn muffin flavor. If you want to, you can definitely decrease the amount of sugar, but I like at least 1 tablespoon. It rounds out the flavor. And yes, I'm doing an entire jar or 1 cup of cheddar cheese. So that jar right there, that's a half pint jar. So that is 1 cup, and all I did was fill that up with some cheddar cheese. If you want to, you could sub pepper jack cheese. Our pepper jack cheese is on sale this month, and it would be fantastic in this recipe. And all I'm doing here is adding a bit of water to that jar. Then you can just put the lid on there and give it a shake. Now, I added about 1/3 of a cup, and I think that was just too much. It got a little bit gloopy. You'll see it at the end. So I think 1/4 of a cup is plenty there. And for the cornbread, you'll just need to empty the contents of the jar into a medium-sized bowl and go ahead and stir it because remember, that was all layered in the jar. So you need to combine the baking powder and the salt and the sugar and the eggs and all that. And then just add about 1 cup of water. You can kind of judge and see if you don't think that's enough liquid, you could add a couple tablespoons extra of water if you'd like. And this is optional. You do not have to add that, okay? Your cornbread will be fantastic with just water, but I do like to add a little butter into the mix. I just think it's delicious. I love the flavor and the texture that it adds. As the cornbread is sitting, those little corn kernels are refreshing, so that's why I went ahead and made that. All right, on to the chili. So you'll need a medium-sized pan for this, and you just empty the contents of the jar into the pan and add about 4 cups of water. If you have an oven-safe skillet, you could make this in an oven-safe skillet. I kind of wish I had done that because I had to transfer the chili into a casserole dish when it was ready to be topped with the cornbread batter. So anyway, if you've got an oven-safe skillet, maybe a large skillet that you would like to bake your cornbread in, you can go ahead and just cook the chili in that to start with and save yourself a dish. And y'all know the drill. You bring it up to a boil and then you turn down the heat, get it to a simmer, maybe on medium low. This needs to simmer for about 20 minutes until those beans are nice and tender. Meanwhile, go ahead and preheat your oven. You'll need it at 375 degrees. You can stir that cornbread batter every once in a while. If you need to add a couple of tablespoons of water to get it to that consistency, go ahead and do that. After your cheese has refreshed, that probably took about 15 minutes or so, you can go ahead and add it to the cornbread batter. And see how gloopy that is? Yeah, I just put too much water in there, so I had put 1/3 of a cup of water. But it actually doesn't matter. It's going to go into the batter anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It mixes into that cornbread batter just fine. So after about 20 minutes of simmering, this is what your chili is going to look like. And if you don't think that's enough liquid, go ahead and add some more water at this point because it will dry out a little bit in the oven. So go ahead and give it a taste, and you can adjust your seasonings. I added a pinch of salt. The beans were good and tender at that point, so I just transferred it to a casserole dish. Now, if you use an oven-safe skillet, you can just leave it in the skillet. But I transferred it into this dish because I wanted a little more surface area for this cornbread mix to go on. And you see how I'm just spooning it onto the top? So you want to kind of put it in a layer. You want to layer the cornbread batter on the top of your chili, and that way it will, when it cooks in the oven, it will stay in 2 distinct layers. That's just how this dish is made. And I would go ahead and try to kind of seal the edges there. If you don't, the chili will bubble up through, and then, I mean, it will taste fine. It just might look kind of funny. All right, and then you'll want to bake this at 375 for between 30 and 40 minutes. I cooked mine for 35 minutes. And this is what it looks like after you bake it in the oven. Isn't that gorgeous? Nice and golden brown. You can see the flecks of cheddar cheese that have gotten nice and brown there, and it's so delicious. Isn't that just so pretty? And yeah, I wanted you to see the cross section here, or the side view. You can see the two distinct layers, the chili at the bottom and then the cornbread, which has steamed in that chili. And you can go ahead and serve this up. Now, I like to serve this with sour cream, maybe some scallions, a little cilantro, but that's how I like to serve this. You could, of course, put anything you want. You could add cheese or just whatever you like to this, but I love it with some sour cream. Now, don't you just think that is a gorgeous dish? My husband and I had this for Monday Night Football, and it was just perfect for that. Now, you might be thinking, well, Kara, that's the same difference as cooking chili and then cooking cornbread. And yes and no. I mean, obviously it's cornbread and chili, but also there's something a little bit different about this. It's just something that's really special, something that happens in the oven whenever you cook that cornbread on top of the chili. The steaming of the cornbread with that delicious chili, it just really flavors the cornbread, and it's our favorite part. The cornbread's our favorite part. It's great chili too. They're great together, but it's just something altogether different. But you could definitely make this recipe and then cook them separately. You could put those little cornbread muffins in a muffin tin and cook those up. Those would be great. Cheddar cornbread, yeah, that would be fantastic. But it's really good when it's cooked together as well. Okay, I will include my full recipe in the description box below, as well as my shopping link in case you want to pick up any of these Thrive Life ingredients you see. And for those of you who have bought freeze-dried food and are really unsure what kinds of meals you can make with it, I've written a cookbook for you. It's got over 90 recipes in there, good home cooking type family favorites, all meals in jars. Lots of just add water recipes. It's got hyperlinks to the videos of how to make the recipes in case you want to watch those. I think it's a great value for the money. Download it to multiple devices. Print off any recipes you like, but that's a fantastic cookbook for you. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. And if you would please like this video, that really helps my channel. All right, God bless y'all. Hope you have a fantastic day. And until next time, y'all take care and keep thriving.